June 1944, Normandy. In the grey mist above the bocage, German gunners who expected another slow crawl of Shermans glimpsed something they had not trained for. A thin, low silhouette that flashed between hedgerows fired. Hand was gone before a traversing turret could catch up. That first encounter with the M18 Hellcat felt unreal. A wasp's sting where a battering ram had been anticipated. The shock was not just technical, it was psychological. For men conditioned to trust thick armor and long barrels, speed itself suddenly became a weapon, and certainty faltered. The story of how that blur arrived on European battlefields begins in the aftershock of Pearl Harbor, when the U.S. Army confronted a hard truth. Its tanks, conceived as infantry partners, were ill-suited to dual German Panthers that fought as the cutting edge of a combined arms blade. From that crisis grew the Tank Destroyer Command, with a radical premise. American tanks would not hunt tanks, specialized destroyers would. They would trade armor for maneuver, choose ambush over slugging matches, and rely on mobility to survive where steel could not. Early attempts like the M10 and later the M36 proved the concept in part, but their speed and agility lagged behind the doctrine's ambition. Reports from the Eastern Front and North Africa only sharpened the dilemma. Matching German heavies ton for ton risked losing the very mobility American industry and tactics could deliver at scale. A different answer was needed. Detroit provided it. In 1942, Buick's engineers designed a machine from first principles around velocity. Light armor angled for deflection, but never meant to stop an 88. A right radial engine married to a torque-matic transmission for blistering acceleration, and torsion bars to keep a sprinting hull stable across broken ground. The 76mm gun supplied the sting. Speed provided the shield. An open-topped turret, alarming on paper, bought visibility, weight savings, and the crew's ability to read a battlefield in motion. When the prototype streaked past 55 miles per hour at Ardennes, it defied the era's intuition of what tracked armor could be. The Army called it the M18, the crews called it Hellcat. Italy gave it first blood. In the mountains around Anzio and on the road to Rome, Hellcats practiced a new rhythm: rush into firing position, strike, vanish, reappear elsewhere. German 75s and 88s, calibrated for the deliberate pace of Shermans, were forced to chase ghosts. The price was real. Caught in the open, a Hellcat died fast and crews learned to dance with terrain or pay in seconds, but the results were undeniable. What speed purchased was surprise, and surprise broke stalemates. Then came Normandy's hedgerows, where the 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion carried the doctrine into the bocage. Here the Hellcat's gift was not raw top speed, but the acceleration to burst between gaps, slip to a flank, and punish the Panther's vulnerable sides. In the chaos around Mortain, as German armor lunged to split the Allied line, M18s raced along back roads and field tracks that didn't exist on conventional maps, arriving behind columns that believed they owned the road ahead. German officers complained that American machines appeared where no road existed, a backhanded acknowledgement that the battlefield timeline had been rewritten. The Hellcat did not fight fair, it fought fast, and that changed expectations on both sides. Winter tested nerve as much as steel. In the Ardennes, Hellcats attached to the 101st Airborne served as mobile screens around Bastogne, ambushing before dawn, repositioning by dusk, buying the hours artillery and air needed to blunt the last great German gamble. The open turrets filled with snow. The thin plates offered little comfort, and losses came hard. Yet in those days of crisis, mobility had strategic weight. Panthers stalled, routes clogged, and every sudden appearance of an M18 at a crossroads somewhere ahead told German crews that the enemy's armor was no longer predictable. For the paratroopers on the ground, the sight of Hellcats roaring through icy streets felt like relief made audible. Behind the front, the arsenal of democracy multiplied the effect. Between mid-1943 and late 1944, Buick's lines turned out more than 2,500 M18s, each benefiting from standardized parts and a logistics pipeline Germany could not match. A Hellcat knocked out in France did not stay a hole in the order of battle for long. Replacement vehicles, trained crews, and spares kept the doctrine alive, transforming tactical gambles into operational consistency. German reports, increasingly strained, admitted the futility of counting kills when replacements arrived faster than doctrine could be rewritten. As Allied columns crossed the Rhine and rolled into the Ruhr, the Hellcats' role resembled cavalry more than traditional armor. It sprinted to seize junctions, harassed retreating convoys, and arrived at choke points first. Fuel-starved panzers could not trade space for time against an enemy that treated distance as a short problem and angles as opportunities. American infantry praised the partnership, a fast stiletto that opened strong points for the steadier hammer to follow. German prisoners spoke of disorientation more than fear. The tempo itself had become hostile. None of this was free. The M18's vulnerabilities were real, obvious, and lethal. Its armor could be pierced by almost anything designed to kill tanks. Its open top invited shrapnel and winter's cruelty. Its mechanical components paid for speed with wear. In frontal duels with Tigers and Panthers, a Hellcat died quickly. The doctrine worked only when followed with discipline. Terrain, concealment, coordination, and the refusal to linger inside an enemy's firing solution. Crews internalized that survival was a verb. The greater impact, however, radiated beyond exchanges of fire. The Hellcat altered perception. For German armor, it eroded the confidence that thicker plates and longer guns guaranteed control of the engagement. For American crews, it offered a machine that felt alive, responsive, and handled correctly dominant. Civilians read its speed as momentum itself, a visual shorthand that the war's weight had shifted. Warfare is fought in minds as well as on maps. By 1945, the M18 was doing work on both. When the guns fell silent, the Hellcat's paradox endured. Its speed record would stand for decades. Its philosophy would migrate into reconnaissance and rapid response arms, even as post-war doctrine swung back toward heavier tanks for a looming confrontation with the Soviet Union. Many M18s served on in Italy, Yugoslavia, and Korea, carrying forward both the promise and the peril of armor that wins by moving. Historians would argue about the tank destroyer concept, tally kills and weigh costs, yet enemy documents offered a simpler verdict. They had underestimated a machine that forced them to think differently and react slower. So the story closes where it opened. In a hedgerow's hush shattered by a blur, the Hellcat was never the toughest beast in the field, but it proved that audacity, engineered into steel and fueled by industry, could unseat assumptions as surely as it could flank a panther. In 1944 and 1945, speed answered shock, agility countered strength, and an open-topped streak across a wet Norman field announced that the rules had changed. Victory did not belong to the heaviest armor or the largest gun alone. In that fleeting, disbelieving moment, when German crews lost the thread of certainty, the M18 Hellcat had already done its work.